shattered expectations. The San Francisco skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Blackwood Technologies as Olivia Reed gathered her courage. At 32, she'd spent 4 years as executive assistant to Marcus Blackwood, founder and CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the Valley. She'd watched him close billion-dollar deals without blinking, fire executives without remorse, and work 18-hour days fueled by nothing but black coffee and ambition. "Mr. Blackwood will see you now," his secretary, Patricia, announced with a curious glance. Olivia nodded, smoothing her blouse over her still flat stomach. The company gala 7 weeks ago had ended differently than anyone could have anticipated, with too much champagne, a rare moment of vulnerability from her usually stoic boss, and a night that had violated every professional boundary they'd maintained for years. Marcus barely looked up from his laptop when she entered. "Olivia, this better be important. The Singapore investors are calling in 30 minutes. "It is." Her voice was steadier than she felt. "It's about what happened after the gala." His fingers paused over the keyboard, his jaw tightening. They hadn't spoken about that night since his terse, "This was a mistake," the morning after. "I'm pregnant." The silence that followed seemed to stretch for eternity. Marcus slowly closed his laptop, his expression transitioning from shock to something darker. "That's impossible. We were careful." His voice was cold, calculated. "Not careful enough, apparently." Marcus stood abruptly, running his hand through his dark hair. At 41, he'd built his empire from nothing, meticulously planning every step of his life. An unplanned child was not part of the blueprint. "What do you want? Money?" He reached for his checkbook with practiced ease. "Name your price." The words stung worse than Olivia had anticipated. "I don't want your money, Marcus. I thought you should know. This baby is happening, with or without you." "A baby? Now? You've got to be joking." His voice rose with each word. "I'm weeks away from taking the company public. The board is watching every move I make." "I understand the timing is—" "You've ruined everything." His fist came down on the desk, sending a glass paperweight crashing to the floor. "Do you have any idea what this could do? The scandal? The distraction? Everything I've built could collapse." Olivia flinched, but held her ground. "This isn't just about you or your company." "Fix it," he hissed, eyes flashing. "Or I will. There are places that handle these situations discreetly." The words hung between them like poison. Olivia felt something inside her harden, a protective instinct awakening. "I'm keeping this baby, Marcus. I thought you deserved to know. That's all." She turned toward the door, dignity intact, despite the trembling in her hands. "If you keep it, you're on your own. Completely." His voice was ice. "And you can forget about your position here." Olivia paused at the doorway. "I already drafted my resignation letter. It's on Patricia's desk." That night, as rain lashed against her apartment windows, Olivia packed her life into 2 suitcases. Her mother had left her a small cottage in Mendocino, 3 hours north along the coast. It wasn't much, but it would be a start. Away from the city, away from the memories, away from the man who had made it clear he wanted nothing to do with their child. As she placed her hand over her stomach, Olivia whispered a promise to the tiny life growing inside her. "We'll be okay. I'll make sure of it." 200 miles away, Marcus stared at the city lights from his penthouse, a glass of scotch in hand, telling himself he'd done the right thing. The company needed him focused. A child would only complicate things. Yet as midnight approached, sleep eluded him. replaced by something unfamiliar, the first whisper of regret. Building a new life. The seaside town of Mendocino welcomed Olivia with salt-tinged air and a pace that felt foreign after years in San Francisco's corporate whirlwind. The small cottage her mother had left her sat on a bluff overlooking the Pacific, weathered but sturdy, much like Olivia herself these days. 6 months pregnant and showing prominently now, Olivia walked the shoreline daily, letting the rhythm of the waves soothe her anxieties. She'd found work at the local bookstore, where the owner, Eleanor Johnston, a silver-haired woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, had taken her under her wing without asking too many questions about the father. "You're glowing today," Eleanor commented as Olivia arranged a new display of children's books. "That little one must be doing somersaults." Olivia smiled, placing a hand on her rounded belly. "She never stops moving, especially at night." "She?" Eleanor's eyes brightened. "So it's a girl." "Found out yesterday. I'm going to name her Sophie." The attitude. That evening, alone in her cottage, Olivia opened her laptop and stared at the draft email she'd written to Marcus. She'd promised herself she wouldn't reach out, wouldn't beg for acknowledgement from a man who'd made his feelings crystal clear, yet something compelled her to attach the ultrasound image before hitting send. No message, no plea, just photographic evidence of the life they'd created. She expected nothing in return. 300 miles south, Marcus Blackwood's world was expanding and contracting simultaneously. Blackwood Technologies had gone public to record-breaking success. His face had graced the cover of Forbes, his net worth had tripled, yet each victory felt increasingly hollow. The email arrived during a board meeting. He almost deleted it without opening, but something in the simple subject line, "Her name is Sophie," stopped him. The grainy black-and-white image loaded slowly, revealing the distinct profile of a developing child. His child. "Mr. Blackwood?" His CFO's voice snapped him back to the present. "Your thoughts on the Asian market expansion?" Marcus closed the email without responding, ignoring the unfamiliar tightness in his chest. "Proceed as planned. Next quarter." The days turned into months. Olivia's water broke during a spring thunderstorm that rattled the windows of her cottage. Eleanor drove her to the hospital, holding her hand through 18 hours of labor until Sophie Elise Reed entered the world with powerful lungs and her father's penetrating gray eyes. "She's perfect," Olivia whispered, counting fingers and toes with wonder. Every 3 months, she sent a single photo to Marcus's email. No demands, no updates, just Sophie's milestone moments frozen in time. She never knew if he opened them. In truth, he opened every one. Marcus created a private folder on his secure server where Sophie's images accumulated. Her newborn scowl, her first smile, her sitting unassisted on a colorful blanket. He found himself staring at them late at night, scotch in hand, a gnawing emptiness expanding inside him. His executive coach noticed the change first. "You seem distracted lately. Problems with the Beijing deal?" "Everything's fine," Marcus snapped, though it wasn't. Something fundamental had shifted inside him, a perspective change he couldn't articulate. When Sophie turned 2, Olivia's bookstore job had evolved into managing the shop while Eleanor battled cancer. The community rallied around them both, providing childcare and meals during Eleanor's treatments. For the first time since leaving San Francisco, Olivia felt truly part of something, a village raising her daughter. Sophie grew into a curious, strong-willed toddler with her mother's compassion and resilience. "Mommy's girl," the locals called her, though Olivia sometimes caught glimpses of Marcus in the determined set of Sophie's jaw or the analytical way she approached problems. On Sophie's third birthday, Olivia received a package with no return address. Inside was a handcrafted wooden dollhouse, exquisitely detailed, with a note reading only, "For Sophie. .mb." Olivia's hands trembled as she placed it on a shelf, out of reach. She wasn't ready to explain. Not yet. Meanwhile, Marcus was drowning in success. The more he achieved, the less it seemed to matter. His assistant found him one morning staring at Sophie's latest photo, a laughing 3-year-old on a swing set. "Sir, the Asian investors are waiting in the conference room." Marcus didn't move. "Jeffries, have you ever made a mistake so profound you're not sure you can fix it?" The assistant blinked, unused to personal questions from his boss. "I believe most mistakes can be remedied, sir, with sufficient courage." That night, Marcus called his lawyer. "I want to set up a trust fund, anonymously, for a child." The words felt foreign on his tongue. "My child." As Sophie's 4th birthday approached, Olivia received a letter from a prestigious law firm. Inside was documentation for a trust fund established in Sophie's name, significant enough to guarantee her education through graduate school and beyond. Her first instinct was to return it. Her second was to weep. Her third, after a night of consideration, was to write a brief note. "Thank you. She has your eyes and your stubborn streak. She's starting preschool next month." For the first time, she included her phone number. Unexpected reconnection. The Children's Hospital Benefit Gala was the last place Olivia expected to see Marcus Blackwood. 5 years had passed since that fateful day in his office, and she had built a life she was proud of. After Eleanor's recovery, they had become business partners, expanding the bookstore to include a thriving cafe section. Sophie, now almost 5, was thriving in her coastal life, surrounded by community that adored her. Olivia wouldn't have attended the gala at all if not for Theo Peterson, the pediatric surgeon who had removed Sophie's appendix last winter and subsequently asked Olivia to dinner 6 times before she'd finally accepted. He was kind, patient with Sophie, and understood Olivia's hesitation about dating. Their relationship was new but promising. "You look stunning," Theo whispered as they entered the grand ballroom of the San Francisco Fairmont Hotel. Olivia smoothed her borrowed emerald gown, feeling out of place among the tech elite and medical royalty. "I feel like an imposter," she confessed. "This isn't exactly Mendocino casual." "You're the most authentic person here," Theo assured her, guiding her toward the champagne fountain. That's when she saw him. Marcus stood across the room, unchanged yet somehow different, still imposingly tall, impeccably dressed in a custom tuxedo, his dark hair now threaded with silver at the temples. He was listening to an older gentleman with the practiced patience of someone who would learn to appear engaged while his mind wandered elsewhere. Then his eyes met hers. The champagne flute nearly slipped from Olivia's fingers. 5 years of carefully constructed boundaries threatened to collapse in an instant. Olivia?" Theo's concerned voice seemed to come from far away. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Something like that," she murmured. Across the room, Marcus excused himself from his conversation and began moving purposefully toward her. Each step felt like the countdown to an inevitable collision. "We should find our table," Olivia suggested quickly, turning away. But it was too late. His voice, deeper than she remembered, cut through the ambient chatter. "Olivia." She turned slowly. Marcus. The silence between them held 5 years of unspoken words. Theo looked between them, comprehension dawning on his face. Dr. Peterson. Marcus extended his hand to Theo, having clearly done his research. Your work on minimally invasive pediatric surgery is impressive. Mr. Blackwood. Theo's handshake was professional but cool. I wasn't aware you and Olivia knew each other. We worked together years ago. Marcus's eyes never left Olivia's face. May I have a moment? Theo glanced at Olivia, who nodded slightly. I'll check on our seating, he said, squeezing her hand before leaving. Alone in the crowded room, Olivia found her voice. I didn't know you'd be here. I'm on the hospital board now. Your doctor, is he good to you? To Sophie? The mention of their daughter's name from his lips sent a shiver through Olivia. Theo is a friend, a good man. Marcus nodded, his expression unreadable. Sophie looks happy in the photos. Healthy. She is. Olivia's protective instincts flared. Why are you doing this now, Marcus? The trust fund, the birthday gifts that arrive like clockwork, and now this conversation. His answer surprised her with its raw honesty. Because I was wrong. Catastrophically wrong. His voice dropped. I've missed 5 years I can never get back. Before Olivia could respond, the announcement for dinner sent guests streaming toward their tables. I should find Theo, she said. Marcus reached for her arm but stopped short of touching her. Please, I'd like to meet her. Just once. On your terms. The request hung between them, weighty with implication. Olivia studied the face of the man who had once told her she had ruined his life, searching for signs of the cold executive she'd known. Instead, she saw something she'd never expected. Regret. I'll think about it, she finally said. 2 weeks later, Olivia sat on a bench at Golden Gate Park's playground, watching Sophie conquer the jungle gym with her characteristic determination. Her dark curls bounced as she navigated the equipment, fearless and focused. Is that her? The voice beside her made Olivia jump. Marcus stood a respectful distance away, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, a far cry from his usual bespoke suits. Olivia nodded, her throat tight. She likes to do things herself, doesn't want help from anyone. A ghost of a smile touched Marcus's lips. Wonder where she gets that from. For an hour, they sat in silence, watching Sophie play. When she finally ran over, cheeks flushed with exertion, she regarded Marcus with open curiosity. Hello, she said with the directness of a child. Who are you? Marcus knelt to her eye level, his composure visibly shaken. My name is Marcus. I'm an old friend of your mom's. Sophie studied him with penetrating gray eyes, his eyes, before declaring, You're tall. A genuine laugh escaped him. Yes, I suppose I am. Sophie, sweetie, interjected Olivia gently, why don't you show me that cool slide you were talking about? As Sophie grabbed her mother's hand, she looked back at Marcus. Are you coming too? The simple question hung in the air, laden with possibilities. Marcus looked to Olivia, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. I'd like that very much, he said, following them toward the playground, taking the first tentative step on a path he never expected to walk. Bridges of Trust. The tentative arrangement began with Sunday afternoons. Marcus would drive to Mendocino, where he and Sophie would explore tide pools or build elaborate sandcastles while Olivia watched from a distance, equal parts protective and hopeful. These visits were brief at first, an hour, maybe 2. with Olivia present at all times. "She has your analytical mind," Olivia observed one afternoon as Sophie methodically categorized shells by size, shape, and color. "Everything has to be in its proper place." Marcus nodded, a mix of pride and sadness crossing his features. "But she has your heart, your way with people." It was true. At 5, Sophie had an emotional intelligence that astounded them both. She'd noticed the tension between her mother and this new person in their lives, this friend who appeared regularly and looked at her mother with complicated eyes. One rainy Sunday, when outdoor activities weren't possible, they gathered in Olivia's cottage. Sophie introduced Marcus to her extensive stuffed animal collection, assigning him the voice of a particularly grumpy walrus that made her dissolve into giggles. Later, while Sophie napped, Olivia found Marcus studying the modest living room, the mismatched furniture, the bookshelves overflowing with children's literature, the wall covered with Sophie's artwork. "It's not what you're used to," Olivia said defensively. "It's perfect," he replied, surprising her. "There's more life in this room than in my entire penthouse." Gradually, the visits extended. Marcus rented a small house near the beach, spending weekends in Mendocino. He adjusted board meetings and international calls around Sophie's schedule. For a man who had once prioritized nothing above work, the shift was seismic. "Daddy Marcus is teaching me chess," Sophie announced casually over dinner one evening after he'd left. It was the first time she'd used the word daddy, and it stopped Olivia cold. Is that what you call him?" she asked carefully. She shrugged. "That's who he is, isn't he? You told me my daddy lived far away and couldn't be with us, but now he's here." Children's logic, simple and devastating in its clarity. Olivia had never lied about Marcus's existence, just omitted the complicated parts Sophie wasn't ready to understand. That night, she called him. "She called you Daddy Marcus today." The silence on the other end spoke volumes. When he finally responded, his voice was thick. "Is that okay with you?" It was Olivia's turn to be silent. Was it? Could she truly let him into our lives this way, knowing how completely he had once rejected them? The memory of his anger still stung, but against it stood months of consistent presence, of genuine effort, of a man trying desperately to atone. "Yes," she finally said. "But Marcus, if you disappear on her now, I'll never forgive you. She won't either. I'm not going anywhere. Not this time." As autumn painted the coast in golden hues, something shifted between Olivia and Marcus as well. Their conversations extended beyond Sophie, into territory they'd never navigated before. Their histories, their dreams, the people they'd become in the 5 years apart. On Thanksgiving, Marcus joined them and Eleanora for dinner at the cottage. As Sophie regaled them with stories from kindergarten, Olivia caught him watching her with an expression that made her heart stutter. Later, as they washed dishes side by side, his hand brushed hers. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for giving me another chance, for raising our daughter with so much love when I was too blind to see what mattered." Before she could respond, Sophie burst into the kitchen, breaking the moment. "Can we have pie now?" As winter settled over the coast, bringing stormy seas and cozy evenings by the fire, Marcus's presence became a fixture in their lives. He helped Sophie with her reading, marveling at her quick mind. He brought Olivia rare books for the store, remembering her passion for first editions. One evening, after Sophie had gone to bed, they sat on the porch, despite the chill, wrapped in blankets, watching the moonlight on the churning ocean. "I've been offered the chance to open a satellite office here on the coast, in Fort Bragg. I could be here full time," Marcus said suddenly. Olivia turned to him, searching his face. "What about the company, your empire?" His laugh was soft, self-deprecating. "I've learned some things are more important than empires." The kiss, when it came, felt simultaneously like the most natural thing in the world and the most terrifying. 5 years of anger and hurt, of growth and change, of separate paths converging once again, all contained in that single, powerful connection. When they broke apart, Olivia whispered against his lips, "We're not the same people we were." "Thank God for that," he murmured back. Inside, Sophie was watching from her bedroom window, a smile spreading across her face. Her family was finally taking shape, just as she had wished for every birthday since she could remember. Family redefined. Spring brought change to the coastal town of Mendocino. The wildflowers bloomed across the bluffs. Sophie lost her first tooth, and Marcus Blackwood shocked the business world by stepping down as CEO of Blackwood Technologies to become chairman of the board, a position that allowed him to work primarily from his new home in the renovated Lighthouse Keeper's Cottage, just down the shore from Olivia and Sophie. The fallen tech titan, one headline read, speculating about health problems or corporate scandal. Those who knew him saw something different, a man who had recalibrated his definition of success. The transition wasn't seamless. Marcus still carried the intensity that had built his company, the drive that sometimes blinded him to others' feelings. Olivia struggled with lingering fears of abandonment, with learning to trust again. Their arguments could be fierce, but so was their commitment to working through them, especially for Sophie's sake. "You can't just buy her whatever she wants," Olivia insisted after Marcus presented Sophie with an extravagant tablet. "There need to be limits." "She should have the best of everything," he countered. "The best isn't always the most expensive," Olivia challenged. "The best is what helps her grow into a good person." These clashes became less frequent as Marcus absorbed the lessons of fatherhood, that presence mattered more than presence, that listening often accomplished more than fixing, that love was shown in consistency rather than grand gestures. Sophie thrived under their combined influence, blossoming into a child both thoughtful and determined. She inherited her father's head for numbers and her mother's love of stories. The bookstore became her second home, where she solemnly helped customers find the perfect book under Eleanor's doting supervision. Summer arrived with a heat wave and a crisis. Eleanor's cancer returned, aggressive and unforgiving. The tight-knit community rallied once more, but the prognosis was grim. "I need to be with her full time," Olivia told Marcus one evening, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. "But the store—" "I'll handle it," he said immediately. "Whatever you need." To everyone's surprise, perhaps most of all his own, Marcus Blackwood, former cutthroat CEO, stepped into the role of interim bookstore manager. He hired extra help, rearranged his remaining corporate responsibilities, and learned the inventory system that Eleanor had been using since the 1980s. "You don't have to do this," Olivia said, finding him late one night surrounded by invoices and order forms. "Yes, I do," he replied simply. "This is family." Eleanor passed peacefully in late August with Olivia holding one hand and Sophie clutching the other, telling her favorite stories from memory. She left the bookstore to them both. "To my daughters," her will read, along with a letter for Marcus. "She wrote to me?" he asked in disbelief when the lawyer handed him the sealed envelope. That night, after Sophie had slept, he read it aloud to Olivia on their porch. "Marcus, I've watched you these past months becoming the man these two remarkable women deserve. Remember something. Second chances are rare gifts. Some never get them. You did. Don't waste a single day. Love fiercely and without reservation. It's the only investment that matters in the end. Eleanor. Tears streaked silently down his face as he finished. Olivia reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining. "Marry me," he said suddenly. Olivia looked at him, surprised. Is that a question or a command? His laugh was watery. Both. Neither? I don't know the right way to do this anymore. I just know I want to build the rest of my life with you and Sophie. Properly, officially, permanently. We're already a family, Olivia reminded him gently. A piece of paper won't change that. No, he agreed. But I want to stand up in front of everyone we know and promise to love you both for the rest of my life. I want Sophie to know this is forever. The wedding took place on the bluff behind Eleanor's, now Olivia's, bookstore, with Sophie serving as both flower girl and ring bearer, insisting on handling both critical roles. The guest list was small, the bookstore's loyal customers, Marcus's most trusted colleagues, the doctor who had removed Sophie's appendix and graciously stepped aside when he saw the inevitable unfolding between Olivia and Marcus. As they exchanged vows with the Pacific stretching endlessly behind them and Sophie beaming between them, Olivia reflected on the unlikely journey that had brought them here. The anger and rejection, the years of separation, the tentative reconnection, the gradual rebuilding of trust, all of it necessary to forge the family that they had become. That night, after the celebration had ended and Sophie had finally succumbed to exhaustion, Marcus and Olivia stood on the porch of their home, her cottage, now expanded and renovated but still cozy, still authentic. "I was so wrong," Marcus said quietly, "when I said you'd ruin my life with this baby." Olivia leaned into him, watching the stars emerge over the ocean. Sometimes the things we think will destroy us end up saving us instead. Inside, Sophie slept peacefully, surrounded by the books her mother loved, the technology her father created, and the unconditional love that had finally bridged the gulf between two worlds that once seemed incompatible. In the morning, they would begin again, not as CEO and assistant, not as single mother and absent father, but as a family redefined by forgiveness, strengthened by struggle, and bound together by a love none of them had expected to find.